The sound of my laptop shattering against the wall echoed through our living room. I flinched but kept my spine straight, refusing to show fear as my father's face turned a deeper shade of red. "Maya, you ungrateful child," he roared, his accent thickening with rage. "Do you know how long we've planned this? The Sharmas are one of the most respected families in our community." My mother sat on the cream leather sofa, dabbing at her eyes with the edge of her designer sari. "What will people say?" she whispered, more concerned with appearances than my happiness. "We've already sent out the wedding invitations. My name is Maya Patel, and at 24, I was about to lose everything because I refused to marry a man I'd met exactly twice. Both times, he'd spent more time talking about his Tesla and Silicon Valley connections than trying to get to know me as a person. "I don't care about the Sharmas or their money," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I won't marry or run. I don't love him, and I never will." Love. My father spat the word like it was poison. Love is a fantasy from your American movies. Marriage is about family, responsibility, tradition. We came to this country with nothing, worked our fingers to the bone to give you everything. And this is how you repay us. I glanced at my broken laptop, thinking of the countless hours of code stored on its hard drive. The startup I'd been building in secret for the past year. The dream I hadn't dared share with my traditional parents. They'd paid for my computer science degree at Stanford, expecting me to land a safe corporate job and marry whoever they chose. Instead, I'd been working on an AI algorithm that could revolutionize personal finance. "I'm building something," I said, finally ready to tell them the truth. "A company. My algorithm could help millions of people manage their money better. I don't need to marry Arun for financial security. I can make it on my own." The laugh that erupted from my father was cruel and dismissive. "A company? You think you can succeed in the tech world without our support, without the connections this marriage would bring?" "Yes," I said simply. "I do." My mother stood up, her face hardening. "Maya, enough of this nonsense. You will marry Arun next month as planned. End of discussion." I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the words I knew would change everything. "No, Mom, I won't." The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face went from red to purple, and my mother's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. "Then you are no longer our daughter," my father said, his voice ice cold. "Pack your things and get out. Don't expect a single rupee from us. Let's see how your precious company survives without our money." My mother didn't say a word, just turned her back on me, her shoulders shaking with either sobs or rage. I couldn't tell which. I walked to my room in a daze, pulling out a suitcase and filling it with essentials. Clothes, documents, my backup hard drive. My hands trembled as I changed my bank password, knowing my father would try to freeze my account. I had some savings from freelance coding jobs, enough to rent a cheap apartment for a few months if I was careful. As I dragged my suitcase down the curved staircase of our mansion, the home I'd grown up in, memories flooded my mind. Learning to ride a bike in the circular driveway, doing homework at the kitchen island, celebrating Diwali with elaborate decorations and sweets. But those happy memories were now tainted by the reality of conditional love. My father stood by the front door, his arm around my sobbing mother. "Once you walk out that door," he said, "don't ever think of coming back unless you're ready to apologize and accept the marriage." I paused at the threshold, looking back at them one last time. "I love you both," I said softly, "but I won't sacrifice my dreams or my happiness for your idea of tradition." The door slammed behind me with a finality that made my heart crack. I loaded my suitcase into my old Honda Civic, the one my father had complained about when I refused the BMW he'd offered, and drove away from everything I ever known. That night, I crashed on my best friend Sarah's couch, trying to figure out my next move. She sat with me until 3 a.m., letting me cry and rage and finally plan. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said, squeezing my hand. "But Maya, what are you going to do about your company? Without your parents' connections?" I wiped my eyes, pulling out my phone to show her the latest prototype of my algorithm. "I'll find investors who believe in the technology, not just my family name. The algorithm works, Sarah. I know it does." The next few weeks were a blur of apartment hunting, job interviews, and endless pitching. I found a tiny studio in a less desirable part of San Francisco, took a part-time job as a coding instructor to pay the bills, and spent every other waking moment refining my algorithm. My phone would light up with messages from relatives and family friends, all expressing their disappointment, telling me to apologize to my parents before it was too late. I blocked them one by one, focusing instead on building my company. The rejection letters from investors started piling up. Too risky. Not enough traction. Come back when you have more experience. Each one felt like another door slamming in my face, but I refused to give up. 3 months after leaving home, I was running dangerously low on savings when I got an email that changed everything. A partner at a prominent VC firm had heard about my algorithm through one of my Stanford professors. They wanted to meet. I spent days preparing for the pitch, knowing this might be my only shot. The morning of the meeting, I put on my most professional outfit, a simple black dress from my previous life, and took a deep breath. "Your technology is impressive," the lead partner said after my presentation. "But what really interests us is your passion and resilience. We've heard about your story, Ms. Patel. Not many people would walk away from everything to pursue their dreams." I gripped my hands tightly in my lap. Sometimes you have to risk everything to build something meaningful. He smiled, sliding a term sheet across the table. "We'd like to offer you $2 million in seed funding." My vision blurred with tears as I looked at the numbers, but I forced myself to focus. This wasn't just about proving my parents wrong anymore. This was about building something that could help people, about showing other young women from traditional backgrounds that they could chart their own path. I signed the papers that afternoon, and FinWise Technologies was officially born. The next year was a whirlwind of hiring, product development, and user acquisition. My algorithm, refined and expanded with the help of a talented team, was helping thousands of people better understand and manage their finances. My parents' silence continued, but I heard through the grapevine that Arun had married someone else, a doctor from a good family, and that my mother had taken to telling people I was studying abroad. Their denial of my success hurt, but I channeled that pain into working harder. FinWise grew faster than anyone expected. Our user base doubled, then tripled. Major financial institutions started reaching out about partnerships. I was invited to speak at conferences, featured in tech magazines, named to 30 under 30 lists. But nothing prepared me for the call that came 18 months after I walked out of my parents' house. It was from one of the largest fintech companies in the world. "Ms. Patel," the CEO said, "we've been watching FinWise's growth with great interest. We'd like to discuss an acquisition." The acquisition offer was staggering, $600 million. The number didn't feel real as I stared at the documents spread across my desk. 2 years ago, I'd been sleeping on a friend's couch, and now you've built something extraordinary here, my lead investor said during the final negotiations. "Are you sure you want to sell?" I thought about it carefully. The acquisition would mean our technology could help millions more people, and my team would be well taken care of. Plus, they wanted me to stay on as head of innovation with complete creative control. "Yes," I said firmly. "It's the right move." The day the acquisition was announced, my phone exploded with notifications. TechCrunch, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, they all wanted interviews. But the message that made my hands shake came from an unexpected source. My cousin Priya. "Maya, have you seen the news? Your father collapsed when he saw the headlines. He's in the hospital." My heart stopped. Despite everything, the thought of my father being ill made my chest tighten. I called Priya immediately. "It's not serious," she assured me. "Just stress and high blood pressure. But Maya, maybe it's time. They've seen what you've built now. They can't deny your success anymore." I sat in my office, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Success had healed many wounds, but the pain of my parents' rejection still lingered. "Send me the hospital details," I said finally. An hour later, I stood outside my father's private room at Stanford Medical Center, my heart pounding. Through the window, I could see my mother sitting by his bed, looking older than I remembered. My father was awake, staring at a muted TV that was, ironically, playing a news segment about FinWise's acquisition. I knocked softly and entered. The silence was heavy as both my parents turned to look at me. "Maya," my mother whispered, her eyes filling with tears. My father's face was unreadable. The last time I'd seen him, he'd been purple with rage. Now he just looked tired. "The doctors say it's nothing serious," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But you should rest, Papa." He looked away, his jaw tight. "Why are you here?" "Because you're my father. I replied simply, and because maybe it's time we all stopped pretending. My mother stood up, wringing her hands. Maya, we've seen the news. Your company, it's quite an achievement. I almost laughed at the understatement. It's more than that, Mom. It's everything you and Papa taught me to be: hardworking, determined, ambitious. I just applied those lessons differently than you expected. By throwing away our traditions, my father asked, but his voice lacked its old anger. By refusing a good marriage, by choosing my own path, I corrected gently. The world is changing, Papa. Success doesn't have to follow the old rules anymore. He was quiet for a long moment, looking at the TV where my face was still visible in the muted business news. $600 million, he muttered, shaking his head. My daughter. Your daughter who you kicked out, I reminded him, feeling the old hurt surface. Who you said wasn't welcome back unless she agreed to an arranged marriage. My mother made a small, pained sound. We were wrong, Maya. We were so wrong. Yes, you were, I agreed. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because despite everything, you're my parents. And if you're willing to accept me, really accept me, for who I am and the choices I make, then maybe we can start rebuilding. My father's eyes met mine, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Respect. Not just the kind that came with cultural obligation, but genuine respect for what I'd achieved. The boy you were supposed to marry, he said slowly, a run. His company just filed for bankruptcy. The Sharmas lost everything. I nodded, having seen the news. Life has a way of showing us what matters, doesn't it? He reached out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His palm was warm and familiar, bringing back memories of childhood walks and proud pats on the head for good grades. I am sorry, BD, he said softly, using the endearment he hadn't used since I was small. Your mother and I, we were trapped in old ways of thinking. We couldn't see that the world had changed. My mother moved closer, her hand joining ours. Can you forgive us, Maya? Can we try to be a family again? I felt tears slip down my cheeks. It won't be easy, I warned. Things can't go back to how they were. I make my own decisions now, about my life, my career, who I date. We know, my father said, surprising me. You've proven you can make better decisions than we ever could for you. The next few hours were spent talking, really talking, for the first time in years. They asked about my company, actually listening as I explained the technology. My mother cried when I told her about those first months on my own, and my father's face darkened with shame. You were working on this even before he gestured vaguely, unable to say, kicked you out. Yes, I said. I tried to tell you that night, but you wouldn't listen. And now you're the CEO of your own division at one of the largest tech companies in the world. My mother said, a hint of pride creeping into her voice. Now I'm exactly who I was always meant to be, I corrected her. The money, the success, that's wonderful, but it's not what matters most. What matters is that I stayed true to myself. As I left the hospital that evening, my parents' numbers back in my phone and tentative plans for a family dinner the following week. I felt lighter. Success had given me more than financial freedom. It had given me the chance to rewrite the rules of my relationship with my parents. Over the next few months, we slowly rebuilt our connection. There were still awkward moments, still times when their old expectations would surface, but now I had the strength and confidence to address them directly. My mother still occasionally mentioned marriage, but now it was gentle questions about whether I was dating anyone, not demands about suitable matches. My father, to everyone's surprise, became one of my biggest advocates in the tech world, proudly telling anyone who would listen about my achievements. 1 year after the acquisition, I stood on stage at a major tech conference, giving a keynote speech about innovation and tradition, about breaking barriers and building bridges. In the front row, my parents sat beaming, finally understanding that success didn't have to follow their prescribed path. Sometimes, I told the audience, the hardest person to stand up to is family. But sometimes, standing up for yourself is the only way to help them grow too. Later that evening, at a quiet dinner with my parents, my father raised his glass. To my daughter, he said, his voice thick with emotion, who had the courage to show us a better way. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. And to new beginnings, she added. I smiled, thinking of the long journey that had brought us here. The broken laptop, the slammed door, the nights of doubt and fear. They had all led to this moment, not just to success, but to understanding, to growth. To a new kind of family bond built on respect rather than obligation. To new beginnings, I echoed, raising my glass. And to having the courage to write your own story. As we sat there, sharing a meal and genuine conversation, I realized that sometimes the greatest victories aren't the ones that make headlines. Sometimes they're the quiet moments of reconciliation, of barriers broken and minds opened, of love that grows strong enough to bridge the gap between old worlds and new. I had done more than build a successful company. I had helped build a bridge between generations, between tradition and progress. And that, more than any acquisition or accolade, was worth everything I had risked to get here.